Welcome back to the Hanging with the Hoopers podcast. Tim and Andrew Hooper, your hosts, where we believe. Well, Andrew, what do we believe?
This always cracks us up, right?
Kick it over.
Where we believe the attitude of leadership is everything.
It's the heart.
It's the heart.
It's the why we lead. And today, why that's so important is we're going to unpack some indicators that I think every leader should be watching for. Whether we're maybe have a complex leading with too much of our ego on our sleeve or shoulder or just out front, whether we're an authoritarian, whether we are dictating things, whether we're not bringing the team together, just all sorts of indicators, I should say, that we could be looking at in our own lives as red flags.
Yeah.
Before we get into this all-important topic, Andrew, do you want to read our message from one of our valued sponsors?
Absolutely. The message is not that great, so I'm gonna ad-lib on this a little bit. I'm kidding. It's a good message.
I know.
But this episode is sponsored by Energy for Sales. And if you're anything like me as a salesperson, it's super easy to be distracted by all the noise that comes into our inbox, into our LinkedIn DMs. We're getting things promising us leads, easy buttons, new marketing tricks, etc., etc., etc. But what you really need to do is take a step back, tap into your energy, you as a unique individual, and how you sell. Yep. You really don't need gimmicks. You need focus and a plan. And Energy for Sales does that for you. They help give you the sales skills that will help with confidence and simplifying your process and focus your energy into metrics that actually matter for your business. Wow. You can connect with them online at energyforsalesteams.com. That's energy, the number 4, salesteams.com. All right, with that,
beautiful. Let's
jump into leading indicators.
Yes.
Things that you can kind of look at as a leader in your own organization. And if you report to a leader like this, things you can look for, right, to determine what type of an organization you're in, around how does that person lead, right? Yeah. There's, a lot of ego in leadership sometimes, right? Unfortunately, ego's not bad when it comes to, well, maybe, I don't know. Let's define ego. You're the wordsmith. But as it comes to confidence, right? Like, confidence is not bad. Being confident in your vision, being confident in your objectives. Right. But when it becomes all about us, and all about who we are, and we have to be right, that's where we kind of get into some of the weeds on this.
I love that you said when we have to be right, because at the heart of this show is we don't need to be right. As leaders, we need to relate. And I think that's the difference. Ego has to be right, but excellence wants to relate. We all have an ego. That's our survival mechanism. Yeah. Our ego wants to survive. Unfortunately, sometimes in business, if we don't win something, if our way doesn't happen exactly, we maybe have a controlling personality. And sometimes that's just natural too. You might have more of an engineering mindset and you wanted it a certain way. That's all fine. Personalities come out in different ways. Totally fine. No one's wrong for having a tendency towards controlling or a tendency to anger if it's not done your way.
Or being passionate about something.
Or passionate.
Right? That you do, right?
All the time, right?
We're passionate.
You're like, bro.
All the time.
Like, whoa. You're like, bro, like, wow, you bring me down. Like, inspirational, motivational, and you're like, practical, bro. Let's get it done. So I think what we want to unpack today are just look into your own leadership and first off, understand that, as leaders, we may have built our own Truman Show. I mean, and thanks to you, Andrew, for just recently introducing me to this, how old of a movie?
Was it 1998?
I don't know, something. But again, we'll unpack a little bit of why we didn't watch any of those growing up. You introduced me to it, I watched it, and wow, mind-blowing. But so many of us have built this, this bubble, this ideology of what we think it should be. And some of that is from our past. Some of it's from our own presumptions.
Yeah.
And then we see people fitting into that, and we don't give people the same benefit of the doubt that we would want. We don't empower our frontline leaders to be creative, to be collaborative. And so how can we watch for those indicators that might say, hey, you're in the process of building a Truman Show?
Yeah.
Andrew, give us some examples in the real world.
Well, one of the first things you can ask yourself when it comes to how you operate in this regard would be how often, or in recent history in your organization, how often have you allowed yourself to be either challenged or have you allowed somebody to have some input or influence into the decisions that you're making as a leader?
And allowing meaning asking for it, right?
Asking for
Initiating that.
Initiating it, but also if someone volunteers it, not shutting them down. Yeah. One of the worst examples I ever experienced in my career was a mid-level manager who, for all of those of us who are managers on their team, anytime something was brought up that was considered out of our purview, which sometimes was or sometimes wasn't in our perspective, a simple suggestion offered would be shut down with the comment, "That's my decision to make, not yours. Stay in your lane."
Wow.
To me, that's a little toxic, right? That type of a response. Even if it's something one of your people might share with you that's out of their lane.
Yep. Wow.
Are you looking at the heart of maybe why they brought it up? Maybe they feel it impacts them in a certain way. And so, like, in practice, if that feedback's being shared with you, or if you're asking for it, however it's getting to you, do you allow it in? You may not, we're not saying take feedback and opinions and implement from your lowest performers or people who just want to be that contrarian. We all have some of those on our teams, and you have to manage folks like that.
Right.
But who are those people on your team who contribute to the business success, who move your bottom line, move your top line, that moves your bottom line, right? Who are those folks that really invest in your vision, your mission, and are they involved in decision-making on a regular basis?
Yes.
Are their opinions not only received, but at times incorporated? It's not a whole, like, I know you want to get into that, but it's not like take the whole thing they say and discard what you said and I'm only going to do one or the other. No, but compromise is not a bad word. Finding good compromise where you can incorporate different aspects of things. Yeah. And I think you have a really good example of this that you want to share, because I saw you clapping your hands over there.
Bringing everyone together. I think I was going to say this towards the end, but why not put this exclamation point right in the middle here?
Boom.
And if you're listening, I'm not going to use his last name. I don't want to embarrass him, but Gene. Gene's one of those managers, he's executive vice president, I've worked for and just appreciate so very much. Because if change is needed in the organization, the first thing we do is we formulate a roundtable. He may pull certain people he feels like have the strengths, or he may pull the entire management team together and say, this is what I want to accomplish. How do you guys see doing this? His executive assistant's over there typing up all the notes as everybody contributes, and then we get this summary. You dropping your pen over there, you're taking notes. Executive assistant over there taking notes. He sends a summary out, right? Hey, look over this. Now we're going to consolidate this down and absolutely incorporate. And then in the end result, you have New England manager, Texas manager, different people's opinions in the end result. And voila, you're moving the company forward. People feel invested in. They feel not only appreciated, but they feel like their feedback mattered. And so I think that's a great indicator. That's a leading indicator that you're leading well. You're collaborative. You're pulling people's. You said it earlier. Asking for their perspectives on things. You're looking for and acknowledging blind spots in yourself, things you didn't see because somebody over here is a different nationality. Or a different background.
We're all human.
Or a different race.
We all have blind spots.
And because you appreciate diversity of race, experience, age, whatever. All the diversity, you say, wow, this feels like a better and more beautiful picture. And now this end result can actually move the company forward faster. And go back to what you said about stay in your lane. That sentence should absolutely never be used inside of inside of an organization. This is our lane. We showed up. I came and put on the logo on my polo or walked underneath that logo at the front door as I walked into this building, or on Zoom, that logo is what I sit on or have next to my name, whatever the case may be in this virtual world space. We are in the same lane. And if somebody shares something, it probably means they care. And even if it's shared in not the best sort of way, that's another thing about leadership.
We talk about that.
We have to acknowledge it, accept it, and thank them for it, and then let them feel like they have that seat at the table. And go and dig a little deeper on this, Andrew. A safe seat at the table.
Yeah.
Because are they going to be...
Yeah, your responsibility as a leader is to have the bandwidth to absorb the negative emotions, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the negative emotions that that you perceive from somebody, they could or could not be being negative, but you might perceive some emotion. You got to have the bandwidth to create a safe space and not hold that against them in the future. One of the best leaders I ever had, Jason, if you're listening to this, I know you've checked out some of the podcasts. I just want to say thank you, because there were times where I needed to vent. I needed to get things off my chest. I was not having a good day as a leader. And, you don't do that to your team, but to him at times I would. Why did I feel I could do that? And this person, Jason, actually helped me get promoted to more senior positions and never held me back because of anything that happened behind closed doors.
No retaliation.
Never retaliation. That's something. That's another leading indicator.
What a thought.
That's another leading indicator of our topic today, of building this echo chamber / Truman Show environment where you create a bunch of yes men who are just doing what you ask them to do.
Yeah.
Do you allow people to have a safe space to influence? The vent when they need to, and not hold that against them moving forward. And when you create a safe space and you need to give tough feedback to the folks that maybe the person vented you, I've had employees do that to me before. When they know there's no fear of retaliation, they know it's a safe space. When you give them feedback, say, hey, can I challenge you, or what about thinking this way about what's going on? They receive it. Because they're doing that for a reason. So creating that environment is so healthy. I'm not saying go be Dr. Phil every day, all day, because again, there's some boundaries there.
Correct.
I'm talking about workplace issues, things that might come up. Being able to give advice and challenge folks on things when you create that safe space. Man, it's so powerful in an organization. And I think all of us as leaders have room to do that better. We can get busy.
Well,
we can be going at a fast pace where when someone needs to have those moments or someone wants to come in and share feedback, we brush it off. And our intent is not to not value their feedback, but their perception is that their feedback.
I'm going to challenge you on here, can I? So leading indicators in my mind are a good thing, right? It means we're leading the company forward. They're leading indicators. So I would just want to reframe it. There's some red flags. Right, that's things we want to look for as far as
I allow you to reframe.
Can I do that?
Yes, of
course.
Okay,
good. Thank you. You validated me. Wow, we're going to incorporate this in the podcast.
We have blind spots,
but I like red flags. A red flag I would absolutely say to watch for is what you said, Andrew. Retaliate. Like, do you have that even if you don't, do you have that feeling, that gut feeling of ooh, I don't want to look for them for that promotion because that puts them closer to me and more proximity that puts them on the, do you have that gut feeling of vindication, needing vindicated? If that could be a red flag inside that you've built you've built your own Truman Show. Or that you're living in an echo chamber. So let's take it a step farther, right? So you talk about, or you may be asking, why are you guys so passionate about this? Why are you so passionate about the tendency towards an authoritarian leader or a dictator, right? Well, I'll open up on air here and just candidly say that we grew up in a very toxic environment.
We did.
Coming out of a very traumatic past where religion was the cloak, and this is not to knock any religion out there or beliefs, but our ideology, whether we think it's good or whether we think someone else's is bad, can absolutely affect our decision-making and destroy people's lives. Leadership is a gift and a privilege to improve life, to collectively build a shared vision and bring people together to accomplish that vision where they all feel purposeful, where they all feel valued. That's leadership. And we'll talk about servant leadership in another podcast. We'll talk about all sorts of amazing things there. But when we're doing it wrong, when we're living in an authoritarian environment, it's not healthy. And we grew up in that.
We did.
Where you were either chastised or even rewarded for reporting on a sibling. You talk about home.
Chastised if you didn't, rewarded if you did.
Yes.
Right.
Where you had these, extreme views, right? There was no real why given. There was no shared why, no shared agreement, no shared, this is why we do this. There wasn't any of that. It's just, this is the way. Come to find out later why it was the way. It's very tied to some very unhealthy things.
Right.
But here's the way. For instance, girls can't wear makeup. Now, in some situations, totally fine. totally fine, right? And girls are like, oh, that's fine. But in this, there's no why, there's no this, and then all of a sudden it's we don't do that. And as they're getting, as siblings are getting older, and then it's hey, if you see this happening, or you're privy to this, you report on it. And if you didn't, you're chastised, right? We're not blowing smoke here on this podcast talking about these red flags. We're talking about real world examples of, some traumatic past, but also some smaller cases of that in the workplace.
I think it goes into our why, right? Like everyone's background and past are what makes us who we are.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, you can't go back and change the past, and neither we don't believe that it should justify the decisions that you make moving forward.
Yes.
There are healthy things to do to heal from and deal with.
Yeah.
Deal, heal, and
like
learn. I just came up with that. Deal, heal, and learn. And at the end of the day, it fuels who we are as a human being. So Tim and I, we're so passionate about this because we grew up in that. To Tim's point, it wasn't only the spying on other siblings and reporting back because of this authoritarian kind of household, but silly things like you need to swim fully clothed. I mean, it was a pretty toxic, rigid, very unfortunate what's going on in Iran, and I want to give a shout out to the women in Iran who are standing up for their rights right now. It's extremely sad and disheartening that we have countries in the world today that are doing things like that.
Sure. Authoritarian governments.
And we won't necessarily get into the politics of it, but at the end of the day,
no politics here. Just
we grew up with some of that, right? We grew up with some of that modesty, please type thing. And we have 9 sisters, right? And so at the end of the day, there was a lot of policing going on, unfortunately, and it wasn't healthy at all. And so those types of things create this toxic environment. And the reason I bring up like swimming fully clothed, what the heck? Like, it's so innocuous and stupid, right? Like, pardon my negative words here, but at the end, as we look back, we're like, man, we grew up in that. It was so crazy. But pick your battles, right? Like, who is so into themselves? Right. But who's into themselves a little bit, right? Yeah. Where it's like, I'm making up these rules around very simple things that are kind of like, why?
It
doesn't make sense. It's a rule to have a rule.
Right.
And so, we always look at kind of that fuels us, but how does it apply to leadership too? Sure. It's kind of pick your battles.
But it's also, again, the ideology of, women were supposed to be submissive. They didn't have a voice. Sure. They weren't valued their property.
Right.
In a way. That was the mindset.
Right.
And that's not healthy. And so that's why you see these headlines and your heart wrenches. And of course, growing up overseas, I mean, some of these things, you look at Russia right now, for instance, right?
Another egotistical, maniacal type leader.
I read an article the other day where it's moving some of the generals out of the way to have his hand on all the decisions on the front line. And you look at 60, 70, however long ago it was. Sorry, Mr. Producer, not your memory cards on the floor there. But as you look at that, it's history repeating itself. Mm-hmm. Hitler did the same thing, right? Moved his generals out of the way, annihilated some of them, and started really getting towards the end, started getting really hands-on because you start living in this Truman Show, this echo chamber. You start distrusting everybody. You start turning on everybody. And what you think was a secure business is really a house of cards because it's all built around your ego. You have nothing to hand down. You didn't listen to anybody but yourself. And here's why it's so important to us to talk about. Look for these red flags early on. Okay? Got off a phone call this morning where I apologized to another leader for mishandling a situation. Okay? Was it humble pie? Sure. Was it a hard conversation? Heck yes. Was it a needed conversation? Yes. Why? Because it's not important about being right. And we started the show with this. It's all about being able to relate. Absolutely. And start seeing it from her point of view and saying, you know what? I screwed up on it and I'm sorry. Right? And then growing. Deal and heal. Miguel, do you have anything that rhymes with heal that wouldn't say to go to the next chapter? Gotta put you on the spot. Mr. Producer's shaking his head. We're gonna find the thesaurus. We're gonna find a deal,
little Mike shy guy.
Heal,
get him on the mic.
Deal, heal, and we're gonna have another one for you folks on the next podcast. But it's gonna be deal, heal, and it's surreal right now.
Well, it's like learn.
There we go. Learn,
but it doesn't rhyme to your poetic mind.
I wanted to rhyme.
It's okay.
I wanted to rhyme.
All good, but so true, right? Like, don't shy away from dealing with these things if they're popping up in your organization. it helps you grow.
Yeah.
We're all human.
Yes.
You know, there are things that will not only help you build stronger, but are opportunities for you to build a stronger relationship. Sometimes from some of these acknowledgments we can make as leaders, saying, hey, I don't have it all figured out.
Yes.
And hey, that was a miss on my part. And hey, I need to apologize to you, my employee, because I handled that the wrong way.
That's a leading indicator.
Those types of things are good.
That you're doing it the right way.
In my opinion, those types of things are good. And some of you might disagree with us and say, no, a leader should never apologize. Well, no, I think you got to check yourself, and I challenge you very respectfully on that. That if you don't think it's right to apologize at certain times as a leader, you probably should. So, you know, yes, what's going on in Russia? Crazy. Should that control us? No. Can we look at that?
Right.
Is anyone here Putin? No. We don't work with any Putins.
Right.
We're not saying that. But we can learn from these types of situations.
Yes.
And we can look in our own organizations, our own lives, to see where we might have opportunities to grow in things that might be taking us down that path.
Right.
Ultimately, of being the ultimate kind of dictator leader, which is not good. Right. So with that, let's wrap the episode. I think we jumped into a lot of fun stuff. Hopefully you had something that sparked
deep
some stuff, some deep stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit about our past too, which is important, I think, for you all to understand who we are, what fuels us.
Hey, folks, in the comments, drop me a nice rhyming word.
Please.
You need to close this chapter for me.
Close it for us. Deal, heal, and
blank. Go ahead and go. All right. With that, we'll wrap it up.
We'll see you guys.
Peace out, guys.
Thanks.
Go lead.